Did you know churches pay $0 in taxes? This is especially surprising considering these evangelicals have so much money they have to explain why it's so necessary for them to have private jets and yachts. If you don't believe me, there's a link to that YouTube video in the description, but it's pretty great. Anyways, that's something that I didn't know for a really long time, all the way until I turned maybe 21 years old. I found out that churches were not taxed. They pay $0 in federal taxes. And it's just incredible considering, like I say, how much money they have. People like Joel Osteen and Jim Baker, John Hagee, Pat Robertson. I mean, the list goes on, and these people remind me of Leper Messiah from Metallica's Master of Puppets album. It's a song about these people setting up shop in these towns to essentially establish what's called seed faith, where, if you give money, you give your time to God, you'll be delivered from, say your disease or your addiction or whatever your ailment may be in life. But these people prey on that, really, really relevant, that song Leper Messiah, and these people. One of these stories that's especially relevant, and of course I'll have this in the description like I said earlier, but it's one of Joel Osteen, really famous evangelical televangelist. He said that he didn't open his megachurch doors to victims of Hurricane Harvey because Houston didn't ask. And then when they faced some criticism for it, he said, well, not only did Houston not ask, but there were not enough volunteers and staff to accommodate these people. Which is, of course he wouldn't own up to the fact that, well, I just don't want all these people in my church. Now, why does it matter? Why am I going off about this? Well, it matters because we have an evangelical in the White House, and his name is Mike Pence. And Mike Pence's history, as far as how deep he is willing to cement his boots into the Bible, is actually pretty scary because, while he was governor of Indiana, there was an HIV outbreak. So this is not the first outbreak that Mike Pence has had to deal with in his political career. He's been around the ropes. So how did his first response go? Well, not good. Some people would say that he even ended up making it worse. Quoted from the article, it's true that Pence faced an HIV outbreak while he was governor, and that he eventually allowed a needle exchange. But his revisionist history misrepresents his role in what transpired in the small town of Osteen, Indiana 5 years ago, where over 200 people were infected with HIV. What happened is that Pence failed to act in response to increasingly urgent signs of a significant HIV outbreak, and he delayed implementation of vital public health measures. Among public health experts, the Indiana outbreak is considered a failure of state response, an example of how poor political leadership can actually make a crisis worse. Does this sound familiar to you? Because it really should. I bring this up because I feel like the combination of the two is dangerous. Like I say, the churches are not taxed, and evangelicals in the White House is, in terms of a public health perspective, it's not a good idea. A lot of people have been known to quote the Bible when they were, demanding that slaves stick around. That's exactly what slave owners did. It was a common tactic and tool. So, I think these people should start paying their taxes. The churches should start paying their taxes. I don't think that's anything extremist. If that sounds extremist, that's too bad, because, they make a lot of money. I think if some of that money was implemented into infrastructure, rather than, depending on the church to feed the homeless, how about we have a program that makes sure that nobody goes hungry, simple things that I think are reasonable. It's not anything to, like I say, this will be in the description, but it's not anything to run away from in the fact that, billionaires pay less in taxes than the middle class. I mean, I could sit here all night and we could go back and forth about the true inequality in this country, which is, it's bad, it's getting worse every day. But at the base, I'm just saying that, billionaires pay less in taxes than the middle class. That's bullshit. I think if we address that kind of a conversation, we might find ourselves in more interesting conversations about taxes, It's especially dangerous, I feel like, with this stuff going on, with the response that, we know that people who are affiliated with the church and also in positions of power in the White House give and continue to give. I think it's just a little alarming, It's alarming, especially when you add the fact that, these inspector generals who are essentially watchdogs for the response to coronavirus in the U.S. and more, of course. I mean, they also have oversight on, investigations into foreign policy and arms sales. For example, the one who is investigating Mike Pompeo, former CIA director, um, he was fired. A lot of people want to associate it with the fact that he was just walking. He had an assistant walk his dog or something, and this is the shit that they play with people's minds with. This is the shit that makes it onto Fox News and to cable TVs because it's entertaining to say that, oh God, they're investigating for having, somebody watch his dog. But no, in reality, he's selling, a crazy amount of weapons to Saudi Arabia, and they're going to use them to commit more war crimes. But hey, who's paying attention? The watchdog who was in charge of oversight for the coronavirus stimulus aid was fired as well. That makes a lot of sense with why a lot of small businesses went down anyways, because they probably didn't get the money that they were owed, because essentially the floodgates are open for the 1% now that these inspector generals are dropping like flies in the administration, and it's because they're saying things that President Trump doesn't want to hear. For example, the one who told him, that we were unprepared in terms of supplies, she got fired. Dr. Rick Bright, who didn't want to promote hydroxychloroquine hydroxychloroquine, one take, because there's no scientific data to back up its legitimacy as a game changer, as Donald Trump put it, on national TV. So, and he was fired. So, I mean, that'll be in the description as well. His whole entire testimony is really jaw-dropping. It's basically, if you investigate my crimes or my lack of response, I'll fire you. That's the response that we're getting from the White House, and these things need to be talked about. I don't think this is even on people's radar because you have Fox putting out misinformation. But that's almost typical of Fox at this point. But Facebook too. Facebook, everybody pretty much knows about Facebook's a willingness to prey on somebody's bias and use it against them in the way of target-based ads. But you don't learn about. They don't tell you that kind of stuff while it's happening to you. Fox would never report the 2017 military report that said that we were underprepared for a pandemic. That'll be in the description as well, that article. So we could have acted. We could have done something. Just like Pence could have done something. That's kind of why I had to, put it all together that way, is because the responses are almost connected in the way that there is no response. It's a coordinated effort to, based on what I can tell, let people die. As I've said before, if you've lost somebody to coronavirus, it really breaks my heart for you, because in reality, it probably could have been prevented had our leadership actually, done something about it, given all the science and data that was there. Lack of science for things like hydroxychloroquine. It's just a really strange time, But I used to listen to a lot of conspiracy theory bullshit, and learning this stuff now gives me hope that maybe some people who are, maybe a little lost, let's just put it that way, can wise up, But maybe not. I don't know. There's a lot of fucking idiots out there. These people who are, they're anti-vaxxers, they're people who think the world's flat. That's probably in an effort on the same side of, beating the Bible to discredit science in the favor of, some fucking crazy policy or something. So, yeah, hope you guys subscribe. Thanks for watching. Hopefully we can have more conversations. Talk to you guys soon. Peace.